Alright, this is Mr. Gillum, and today we're going to actually do a couple examples off of your worksheets to get you started. I believe there's only 6 problems on the worksheet, and so we're going to do 2 of them here together, and that'll leave 4 of them on the front for you to do on your own. And so I believe you just got done watching the video about how to divide with decimals. And in that video, I tried to make it as clear as possible that before we divide anything with a decimal in it, we want to make sure that our divisor or number outside the division needs to be a whole number. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to actually move the decimal place. But however many times we move it on the outside, we're also going to have to move it on the inside. And the reason for that is because we know about fractions, and if I were to write this division as a fraction, it would be 3,576 over 9.1. Now, if I would like to move this decimal one place over, what I'm really doing is multiplying it by 10. Okay, and I know that to keep my fraction equivalent, I would have to also multiply the top by 10, and that will give me 35,760 over 91. And so that is really an equivalent fraction to what I'm dealing with here. Remember, this division is the same thing as a fraction bar. So for me to write it this way, it would be the same exact thing. It means the same thing. Okay, division. That's what that fraction bar means. And so for it to be an equivalent fraction, that's what I'm doing. If I'm moving the decimal place, I'm really multiplying it by 10. And so that has to happen to both to keep it equivalent. Okay, so there's my little side spiel on why we have to move the decimal. So we're actually going to go ahead and move it over to make that 9.1 a 91. Now I have a lot of students confused on this next part. 3,576, that number is the same as 3,576.0. And I think that everyone would agree with that. And so although in 3,576 is not obvious where the decimal place is, it is actually after the 6. But we don't have any decimal places, that's why it's not necessary to write it. However, when it's time to use that decimal place to be moved, I do need to add it in there and move it over. Now, because my decimal place has moved one space over in both of my numbers, I will get the same quotient. However, I am going to need to leave a placeholder. And I'm going to make sure that I clearly put where my decimal is on my new division. Okay, it's going to be right there. And so I'm going to be very honest with you. If you're not a clear writer, you need to really focus in on writing clearly this time, because otherwise you're going to get mixed up on which numbers you're subtracting and carrying and whatnot, and also where your decimal should be. Okay, I'm going to point out in the directions that it says to round to the nearest whole number on this problem. And so I guess now will be a good time to remind you how rounding works. If it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we're going up. If it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, we can include 0 in that, it stays the same. Okay, meaning if I had a whole number I was rounding to and I had 3.9, obviously this 3.9 would round up to 4 because it is closer to the whole number 4 than it is to 3. 3.8 rounds to 4. 3.7 rounds to 4. 3.6 would round to 4. 3.5 would round to 4. 3.4 would round to 3 because 0.4 is closer to 3 than it is to 4. Okay, I think you're getting the idea. 3.3 would round to 3 as well. All right, so when it says round to the nearest whole number, I need to figure out what the tenths place is in order to do that. Okay, I need to know what that tenths number is. So I better go all the way until I get to the 10th spot so I know which way to round my whole number. All right, so a lot of talking there at the beginning. Now we're going to get started. I hope you was listening really close. All right. We're going to knock 2 of these problems out. Now, I've already moved my decimal place. It's in an appropriate spot. When I'm thinking about these things, I like to estimate. So when I'm thinking about 91 into 357, I'm thinking how many times does 9 really go into 36? Well, I know it's 4 times, and I can check to just see how much 91 times 4 is. And you're going to need a little scratch work on these problems. It's 364, so I'm a little too big. So I know only 3 91s will fit into 357. So I better figure out what 91 times 3 is. 273. I'm going to subtract 273. And this is very similar, whoopsies, this is very similar to what we were doing yesterday with whole numbers. In fact, it's exactly the same process. So not to be worried, we've done this before. Now I'm going to bring down my next number, which is a 6. And I know 91 times 10 would be 910, and that's too much, so I'm going to choose 9, I think. And let's just make sure that that's going to fit in there. 91 times 9, 819. That seems to make sense. I'm going to subtract 819 away. And so that leaves me with 27. Continue to bring my next number down, 270. Well, I know if it was 90 into 270, it would be 3, but 91 won't quite fit 3 times, so I'm going to choose 2. 91 times 2 is 182. That's what I'm subtracting away. I need to be sure that when I'm subtracting that I'm getting a number each time, that the number that I'm subtracting is smaller than the number I'm dividing, the divisor number, okay? And 88 is smaller than 91, so I know I made a good choice. All right. Now this is the last place I have to go. I have to go one more step to determine whether or not I'm going to leave it at 392 or if I need to round it up to 393. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another placeholder 0 here to bring down. And again, I know that put the 0 there. 91 times 10 is actually 910, which is a little too much, so I'm guessing that 9 will work. And I have my scratch work over here that I know that's 819. Okay, and I'm going to subtract that thing. And I know, voila, I could continue to keep going with my decimal, but you know what, instead all I need to do is round to the nearest whole number, and so I know 392.9, because this is a 9, my whole number would be 393. And there's actually a symbol that we're going to use to show that we rounded, and that is the approximation sign. And it looks like this: 1 hill and 1 valley. Okay, and so that's approximately 393, because it's not quite 393, not exactly, but it's pretty close. So we use the approximation sign. So once you've moved your decimal, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same process as what we have been working on for the last 2 days. So let's just do one more here. And again, we are rounding to the nearest whole number. That's important to keep in mind. Okay, so this problem, again, is exactly the same as the problems that we've been doing, except for now we have decimals. And there is clearly a decimal here and a decimal here. I need to move the decimal as many times as it takes for my divisor to be a whole number. So I'm going to move it 2 times in this case to make the problem 77 even. And if I do that here, I see that now I'm going to have a decimal here, and I have one space that I need a placeholder as a 0. Okay, and so really, again, I'm going to show you anyway. 1369 or 136.9 divided by 0.77. What I'm really doing is multiplying them both by 100 is what I'm doing, and I know that's an equivalent fraction, and that gives me 13,690 divided by 77, which is the exact type of problems we were solving yesterday. So what I'm doing is the same process, but before I start, I'm eliminating the problem of where the decimal lies. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I know that there's 177 that fits into 136. Not quite 2 will fit, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract like I've been doing all along. And it's the same process as before, so we're going to go just a little bit faster. Now when I think about 77 into 599, I know that that's not very easy mental math. So I'm going to think of it as 8 going into 60. I know 8 goes into 67 times, so let's try 77 times 7 and see how close we are. Looks like we're at 539. I think that's going to be as close as we can get. So we're going to subtract 539, and that leaves me with 60, and I'm getting close to being done. And again, I think that we lucked out. I think that 77 is going to go into 600 7 times as well. If it only goes into 599 7 times, it'll probably go into 600 7 times as well. And I've already got that calculation over here, 539. That leaves me with 61. And I need to go one more decimal place because I need to know what this number is so I can decide if that 177 or 178 is going to be my closest whole number. So I'm going to add a 0 to bring down here past the decimal point. And again, I'm getting close, but I think 77 is going to go to 610 exactly 7, well, not exactly, but 7 times with a little extra. I can try 8 to see if it'll fit in 8 times if I want to. 616, so it doesn't quite. But really, the difference between 7 and 8 when I'm rounding is not important because I know that 7 or 8 will round my whole number up to the next number. So it looks to me like I had 71. I could continue to go on and on and on in my work, but if it just says to the nearest whole number, I just need to know what does this 7 do to this 7? Well, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 rounds it up. So I know that approximately, with one hill and one valley, I have 178. It would be my nearest whole number. My 7 here rounds this 7 up to an 8. All right, so there's a couple examples for you all to start on your homework. That leaves you 4 problems to do for me in class today. All right, that's it for now.